Hi folks. In The Three Worlds by Nelson Barbour and Charles Taze Russell, we are at page 48, and this subhead is "The Kingdom of God, Will It Be Seen by Mortals?" And when he was demanded of the Pharisees when the kingdom of God should come, he answered them and said, "The kingdom of God cometh not with observation," or in the margin, outward show. "Neither shall they say, Lo here, or Lo there. For behold, the kingdom of God is within," or in the margin, "among you." That's Luke 17, verse 20. Everywhere in the Bible, the church, or people of God, represent the kingdom of God. "Ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation," Exodus 19, verse 6. And this promise to the typical Israel and kingdom is to be fulfilled to the true children of the kingdom, and has made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth, according to Revelation 5, verse 10. A complete kingdom is an organized power. The gospel church is not complete, and yet Christ makes it represent the kingdom in all his parables. But it only represents it, and not until it shall be glorified will it really be a kingdom in the full sense. Land may be an element of an earthly kingdom, but nothing that is of the earthy, will ever be an element of the heavenly kingdom. Its locality will be a spiritual or heavenly city. And although the saints who compose the kingdom will be among them, still the world will not be able to point to any locality or say, "Lo here," or "Lo there is the kingdom of God." The kingdom of heaven, or church, is now likened to a net in which are fish, both good and bad, also to tares and wheat, wise and foolish virgins, etc. And in the harvest he will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and cast them into a furnace of fire. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun. That is the church, and it will then be glorified, and the kingdom organized or set up. And he asks us to compare the 7 parables of Matthew 13, and compare it with, significantly, Daniel 2:44. We all know that text. "And as the nations are now subject to the spiritual powers and rulers of the darkness of this world, so in the world that is the age to come, all peoples and nations under the whole heavens shall serve this kingdom of priests. But except a man be born again," that is, becomes a spiritual being, notice this definition, "he cannot see the kingdom of God." So he equates being born again with seeing the kingdom of God in a real sense, that is, entering into it. You must do that in a spiritual body. And of course the text, John 3, doesn't say that. But anyway, that's another video. The Bible teaches that the fallen angels, like the angels of light, are spiritual beings, and that they are invisible except under the God-given restriction of darkness, under which circumstances now, since the day of the Lord began, they seem to have been permitted to materialize themselves. The Bible also teaches that the risen saint is to be a spiritual being. Just what a spiritual body is doth not yet appear, only that they are capable of wonderful changes. Because the saints are to reign over the nations, many seem unable to distinguish between the kingdoms of earth and the kingdom of God, which is to break in pieces and consume them. The kingdom of God is a heavenly kingdom, 2 Timothy 4:18, not because of its locality, but because of its nature. Heavenly is spiritual, as is the earthy, such are they also that are earthy, and as the heavenly, such as they that are heavenly. And as we have borne the image of the earthy, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly, that is, be raised, here he goes again, spiritual bodies. Now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, citing, of course, 1 Corinthians 15:47-50. Hence the term heavenly kingdom is descriptive of its character and not its locality. The kingdom of Satan is called a spiritual power kingdom in heavenly places, according to Ephesians 6, verse 12. How some men can persistently overlook all these statements in relation to the spiritual nature of the kingdom of God and maintain that it is nothing more nor less than an earthly kingdom puzzles me. If they are correct, why must one be born again, born of the Spirit, in order to see it? If it is a literal fleshly kingdom set up in the days of these kings, and is to break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, again Daniel 2:44, Why cannot the heathen kingdoms see it while it is ruling them with a rod of iron and breaking them in pieces? This question is for such as oppose the age to come, and the following for such as accept it. If the kingdom of God is confined to Palestine, as some believe, will not those nations in the flesh who go up to Jerusalem from year to year to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, according to Zechariah 14:16, see the kingdom of God without being born from above? But all this confusion and making the scriptures contradictory is quite as reasonable as is the kindred idea of the glorified saints who are to become equal unto the angels and like unto Christ's glorious body, planting vineyards and building homes. But you may say, they appear as common men. So have angels, when they have manifested themselves to mortals. But to suppose they will come down to the drudgery of a fleshly life is nowhere taught. When they shall enter the heavenly kingdom, and are as the angels of God, they will be with the Lord and see him as he is. But the saints do not inherit the land, only in the broad sense in which they inherit all things. Prince Albert is heir to the crown of England. He does not inherit the land. The common people inherit that. He inherits the kingdom. The righteous shall inherit the land, but the God's seed, the ecclesia, are of the royal family, and take the kingdom and possess the kingdom under the whole heaven. But that does not preclude the idea that they are of a higher order than the peoples and nations and languages who serve and obey. They shall be kings and priests, both rulers and instructors, and mankind, not the land, is their workshop. They have a right to enter through the gates into the heavenly, that is spiritual Jerusalem, whose maker and builder is God. Hence they build no houses. Their mansions are prepared for them, and there is the home of the redeemed. But without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters and whosoever loveth and maketh the lie. A plain description of the natural heart, not of demons. And Christ and his glorified saints are to rule, instruct, and subjugate these nations who are saved from the Adamic death, but walk in the light of the city and bring their glory into it, as from time to time they shall be translated into the heavenly kingdom. Basing this on, of course, Revelation 21 verse 24 and Romans 8:21 about the creation being set free. So I've linked Nicodemus. Nicodemus wanted to know what Christ meant by you must be born again to see the kingdom of God. So we put a link to that video on your screen. Needless to say, it doesn't have to do with what Barbour and Russell assume it has to do, i.e. the transformation into a spirit being. That's not what born again means in its context, and the church has never taken it to mean that. Revelation 1, where he derives his text about we are made to be a kingdom of priests, that's there all right, but what is the kingdom? Is it what Barbour and Russell projected as being here, a division of saints into two classes essentially, the earthly and the heavenly? The number 144,000 hasn't been introduced yet, you've probably noticed, but it's coming. And of course the teaching of Russell and Barbour was quite different from the modern teaching of Jehovah's Witnesses on this point. But the essential derivative that is still present among Jehovah's Witnesses is this idea of two tiers of believers, two classes of Christians. So that study of Revelation 1 is also on your screen, where in a series we've done on the book of Revelation. This one is entitled Eight Jolts That Were Received by Two Jehovah's Witnesses, or something like that. So that first one is on your screen. And also the video about John chapter 3, where Nicodemus consults Jesus of Nazareth for a private interview on the terms of entrance into the kingdom of God.